Here's why finding your real ICP will 100x your revenue, help you sell more, easier, faster, and with a lot less effort. So let's just get straight into it. What is the biggest mistake a lot of people make? Well, it's that they try to sell to everyone, but selling to everyone actually kills your peak conversion potential. But what do I mean by peak conversion potential, and why have I not just called it conversion? Well, there's some people who they actually get a lot of views, they get a lot of leads, they got a lot of traffic, and therefore they actually make a decent bit of money, whether that's 10k, 20k, 30k, but they're not actually be able to scale beyond that. And it's because they don't have the ideal customer profile, they don't have the ICP. So although they get a lot of views, they have a low conversion rate, but because of the traffic, they're still making a decent amount of money. So they think, they're doing a great job, which obviously they are. But my point is they can still make a lot more money and they haven't reached their peak conversion potential where they're closing at higher rates. And the people who are seeing their content and seeing their marketing are people who are actually going to buy. And the challenge many creators face is that they have the following, they get the views, but they have extremely low conversion. And the solution to this is focusing on your ideal customer profile. And I'm about to show you exactly how to find your ICP and the 5 mistakes most people make so you can completely avoid them. Okay? But before we move on to that, I wanted to ask if you actually knew what an ICP is. And if you don't, well, it is basically a semi-fictional representation of the person who will gain the most value from your info product and be the most likely to buy. So obviously, if you're marketing to the ICP, to the group of people who are most likely to buy, that means you're going to have such higher conversion rates and you're going to realistically make a lot more money. But why do people fail to find their real ICP? What's the biggest bottleneck in that? And why do people mostly fail to find their real ICP? Okay, there's a few different reasons you can come up with. And some people will disagree with this one. But in my opinion, the biggest limiter is the scarcity mindset and false beliefs. They have the false belief that if they market to a smaller group of people, that they're going to make a lot less money. But in reality, that's the last issue. So what they do is they go back to speaking to everyone because they're scared that if they speak to a smaller group of people, they're going to lose leads and lose money. But in reality, that is their last problem, like I just said, because they are barely converting. Their offer is not resonating with anyone or barely resonating with anyone, so they're barely making any money. So let's just say you have a revenue goal of $1 million, okay? And you're running a high ticket offer, and that typically is going to be at least $1,000. It's not going to be less than $1,000 because that would just be a low ticket offer, okay? And some people will even disagree that, $1,000 is a high ticket offer, but let's just say, that's the bare minimum, okay? So you want to make $1 million and you have a $1,000 offer. All you need to do is $1 million divided by 1,000. All you need to do is sell 1,000 customers your $1,000 offer to make $1 million, okay? Just 1,000 people. 1,000 people. So the reality is your offer only needs to resonate with 1,000 people and for them to convert into your funnel, into your offer for you to make $1 million. It seems so easy, but let's just say, obviously you're not going to have a 100% conversion rate from every viewer who sees your offer. You're not going to have a 100% conversion rate. So let's just say it's 20,000. And from 20,000, you're closing 5%. That's 5% of 20,000 is 1,000. So you only need to resonate with 20,000 people with a 5% conversion rate to close 1,000 customers and to actually make $1 million. And, with the world population of, being almost 8.2 billion, you really think you're not going to find 20,000 people who are going to resonate with your very sub-niche offer? It's just an absolute false belief. There's going to be at least 20,000 people who relate to your offer with purchasing power, okay? So what are the 5 ways that finding your real ICP will 100x your revenue? Okay, let's start with number 1. By the way, number 5 is the absolute best one and the one that absolutely everyone wants to achieve. Okay, let's start with number 1: precision targeting. When you have your ICP, your real ICP, you reach the right people, not just more people. And that's an amazing thing. That's a great thing because that means that everyone who's seeing your offer is someone who can potentially buy and they're actually interested in your offer, which means, they're actually going to, the messaging is going to be more compelling and it's going to speak directly to their needs and desires, which means they're more likely to actually buy and be interested in your product. Okay. That means that you can create info products that are highly relevant. When you know your real ICP, you can actually create products that are more relevant. And then it becomes like a positive feedback loop where because you have an ICP, people go into your offer, they find that the product you're offering is so relevant to them, and then you can make the offer even more niche and targeted because you know exactly who your ICP is. So it's like a positive feedback loop, which basically means the more you know who your ideal customer profile is, the better you can make your offer, the better you can make your product, and the more money you can make essentially. And obviously, if you know who your ICP is, you're going to waste a lot less time attracting the wrong leads. And if you're running ads, you're going to spend a lot less money, running ads that are attracting the wrong leads as well. So obviously, what does all of this mean? It means that you're going to have higher conversion rates because people who are actually seeing your product, seeing your marketing, they're actually interested in your product. So you're going to turn more leads into paying customers. And obviously, all of this sounds amazing because you can end up making a lot more money. But the reality is, a lot of people make a lot of mistakes when finding the ICP, which costs them a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of lost potential. So here are the 5 mistakes you probably made when finding your ICP, or that you want to avoid if you still haven't got your ICP yet. Okay. So first of all, it's making assumptions instead of conducting research. A lot of people, they just assume who they think their audience is. Okay. Because they assume who they think the audience is. They're making a product based on their assumption. They're making copy based on their assumption. They're making marketing details based on their assumption. And now everything's based on assumptions. They have got no idea who their actual audience is. And now they're just basically running blind. So you really need to do some market research before you actually determine who your ICP is. And the second mistake is creating an ICP that's too broad or too vague. And a lot of people, it's similar to the big mistake that I mentioned earlier, where people just want to sell to everyone because they think they need a lot of views to, and they need to market to everyone for them to make money. Is that even when they have an ICP, they're still not vague. They're still not detailed enough. They're just way too vague. For example, if you're a fitness creator or you're running a fitness offer, and your offer is I help men lose 10 pounds in 90 days. Okay, that's great. That's still good. But which men? How old are they? Are they busy professionals? Are they 30 plus? When you get a bit more specific, then you're going to actually increase the resonance and also increase your conversion and increase the amount of money that you can potentially make. Okay. And the third mistake a lot of people make is they focus solely on demographics. And this is a huge issue because they just open up their insights. They see that most of their audience is 30, men above the age of 30. And they think, wow, I found my ICP. That's it. I'm going to target men over the age of 30. Okay, that's great. But what about those men over 30? Do you know anything about them? Do you actually know, what keeps them up at night? Do you know what makes them anxious? Do you know what makes them nervous? Do you know what really frustrates them that they wish they could solve? No, because you still don't have your ICP. You just looked at some demographics and now you think you have an ICP. But it's not enough, which is why, like I said above here, you need to do market research, you need to conduct research to actually find all these things, okay? These 3 are very big mistakes that people make. But why is number 4? Why have I highlighted number 4 as the biggest mistake? Well, simply because a lot of people create an unrealistic or wishful ICP. They create an ideal customer profile based on what they want their customer to be like. And obviously, at some point, that's something you want to do. You want to, tailor your offer to someone that you'd actually want to work with and who your services, your expertise are most aligned with. But sometimes it goes way too far, but they're just creating, random ICPs that they just wish they had, but it's actually their audience that they've built their whole following on. It's just not that person. And then obviously you can start to build that audience as well. So you can, start to make content and start to market in a way that starts to build to that wish for ICP. But if you're talking about launching an offer with the audience that you already have, then that wish for ICP, that unrealistic ICP that you have that isn't related to your audience, it's just not. It's not going to be people It's not going to be people that are inside your audience. So that avatar, the ICP, is not going to be there, and it's not going to buy, which means you're not going to make any money. Okay, so that's the 4th one. But why does number 5 actually lead to failure? Well, number 5 leads to failure because a lot of people, they think they make the ICP, they got the ideal customer profile, the perfect avatar, and they don't actually revisit and refine the ICP because the ICP over time it changes. It's not just static thing that is evergreen that never changes. You need to be continually reviewing your ICP, your avatar, and making sure that it's aligned with your offer, it's aligned with your product, and it's aligned with actually people who are out there. Okay, so you need to constantly, revisit and refine your ICP so you can make sure it's the best ICP you possibly have.